5:30, Monday, March 3rd, 2025, City Hall Chambers Board of Public Works meeting. Call to order. Item 2, approval of minutes, February 17th, 2025, Board of Public Works meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Or seconded.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, citizens' comments. Citizens' comments. There are none here. We'll move to item number 4. Approval of request for proposal for comprehensive plan, master plan development for the Fire and Rescue Department Training Center, presented by Everett Mueller, Fire Chief.
Good evening. It's going to be just a moment here. I just got to bring up something as far as our presentation. I knew that this was going to be a little bit foreign to most of you as far as what we do in our training area. So I wanted to put together something that I could actually give you kind of the background of what we're asking for and why we're asking for it. I'm just going to hide something real quick. There we go. So, of course, tonight we're here to talk about the comprehensive master plan and request for proposal for that master plan. And looking at that, I think it's really important to, if I can get this to work. There we go. Look at the types of incidents that we have. One thing that we do is a lot of structural fire and live fire situations, also emergency medical calls, hazardous materials responses. And then we get into technical rescue, and this is one that's maybe not as widely known to everybody, all the different things we do, but confined space, trench rescue, high angle rescue, ice water rescue, and rescue task force. So these are a bunch of different options. The rescue task force is like school shooting type things. And that's something that we're working with the police department diligently to try to put together a better plan. Also, we get vehicle accidents and extrication. We do have some wildfire stuff that we do in the city of Marshfield. There's quite a bit of different stuff for different areas where we have some of that wildfire spot. And then also mutual aid and regional response support. So a lot of times we ask a lot of our mutual aid partners to come into the city of Marshfield. And at the same time, we need to be able to reciprocate for them to give them back some of that stuff. So if you were to look back in the past, 2024, we had 3,543 calls. And when you look at that model over the period of time, our highest one would have been 2022 at 4,074 calls. Why this really matters is the need for realistic training props. As we look at some of these, a lot of times our training and our environment that we're working in gets more and more dangerous, and we've got to really try to apply more and more things. So that kind of comes back to why we're asking for the comprehensive training plan, so we can start putting together that long-range comprehensive plan that allows us to go ahead and build this out. The need for specialized training to handle complex emergencies kind of falls in line with the other. And then support regional collaboration. We also have an agreement with Mid-State Technical College for this training center. So we work with Mid-State Technical College a lot in a lot of our training. A lot of their technical people come up and work with our area to put that stuff together. Also, mutual aid partners. We have a lot of our mutual aid partners in the area that can also utilize this. And then the last one, we do a hazmat response. We're a type 1, or actually a type 3 team with the state of Wisconsin for our hazmat, meaning we can go anywhere in the state of Wisconsin if we're called. And in addition, we're also a partnership for Wood County as far as our Wood County plan. So with Wisconsin Rapids, we're actually half the team for that for Wood County, and they're the other half of the team on the southern end, so they would come up. Again, kind of going to why we would need this plan. What is our current facility? If we were to look at our current facility, it's down at 2615 South Vine. It's a 5-acre site. It's taken over by the fire department in 2003. If some of you remember back in the past, this was the wastewater facility at that time. We kind of resurrected it and changed it over to what we could use for a training facility. If we look ahead, the strategic positioning is accessibility for regional training and expansion opportunities. So we've got a lot of those expansion opportunities that are available to us if we can tap into the right funds. And then also the existing issues, we've got some aging infrastructure, some outdated props, and need for improved facilities. So as we go through this, I put together some pictures on what we currently offer down there. If I were to show you the site overview, and courtesy of Josh, I appreciate you sending over the one map, but that's a topographical map on the left-hand side. If you look at the right-hand side of Google Map, that kind of puts it in place just to kind of give you the area. If you were to look at this is actually the Parks and Rec building. If you were to come across on this side, this is where Streets Department actually supplies a lot of their, or puts a lot of their extra dirt supplies and things like that over on that side. And then if you were to come across, this is like the detention basin, and we're squeezed right in between here. This is kind of the plot that we'd be looking at. We have a small shed here. We've got the burn facility here. We've got a small shed that actually makes as a makeshift classroom. I've got some pictures of that coming up. So if I were to look at the current training facility, its layout, again, we have got the garage, training tower, confined space, maze, and then also the burning building. And then the portable fire extinguisher props would be in there, and then a roof ventilation prop to the back. We've changed a couple of those things up since its inception, but I wanted to show you the original. If I were to look at our burn room, the big one here is room number 6. That's actually our burn room. And as we talk about that a little bit later on, we've got some costs that has to go back into that building to actually bring that back up to snuff. For this building, if you were to look at the outside, that's one of our forcible entry simulators. On the one side, we've got all the windows that can actually be hinged and open up. We can let smoke out. We can go do, we can basically climb through the windows if we need to try to add or enhance our training. If we get on the inside, we've got some different space dividers that we can move around to make sure that training can be more realistic. And then we've also got the burn room with a burn pan inside of it with the different layers that are on the outside. If you were to look in this area, we're going to be talking about this a little bit later, but the corrugated material on the outside, if you look at the corrugated material, there's actually got a layer of insulation behind it that helps protect the building itself from that degradation and breakdown over time with a lot of heat. The same with the panels up on top, and some of that is up for replacement just because of the years it's been burned in. So we've got some money that needs to be put into that facility. This is just another snapshot of some of the hallways and things like that in there so that we can do some of the additional training. If we look at the training tower, this is actually allows us to do ladder training, rope rescue training. The ladder training, if you look on the third picture all the way to the right, that on the front of that, that's where we're going to be putting our ladders up. For new firefighters or for existing firefighters too, it goes up to a 3-story structure and allows us to go ahead and stretch our largest ladder up to that area so they get used to going up and down a ladder and doing roof operations. Also, it helps us to retrain our staff just to make sure that we're up to par on utilizing those different tools. We've also got up on the backside, we'd allow for rope rescue training. We can do a lot of that. Confined space, there's a couple holes that are cut inside so we can set a tripod system up and lower and haul. And then we've also got the bailouts for the windows. We can actually bail out those windows. We put a whole rigging onto the person and they can bail out to make sure in case they get into a situation where it's a last resort type item. We've got our 2-story training facility, which has got the upper level with the bailout training system. If you open those windows that are on there, you can see the windows actually clasp open. That allows us to do the bailout onto a ladder. 2nd story search and rescue, we can also do that through the window and do some of those trainings. And the lower level, we've got a search and rescue maze that goes in between. I didn't really get a good picture of that one, I apologize, but it's a search and rescue maze for firefighters to go through, and it kind of gives them some of the general struggles. If we were looking at the natural gas props, and one of the things we're kind of struggling with there with the natural gas prop is actually some of the pipe is starting to degrade, meaning over time, the pipe has to be replaced. So we're at the point where we've got to dig a lot of that up and put new piping in to make sure that we can bring that up to par. But that would have a car fire, dumpster, gas pit, and natural gas meter. The one thing that's notable about that is the car fire simulator that we have in there. We actually bring in an old car and we put it over the top of the natural gas, which then allows that car to burn up. So a lot of times we're adding a little bit more to the atmosphere because we have to burn the car out for the first time, which creates some problems. And again, all the pipe has met its life expectancy. Last year, we put a little bit of time and effort into putting a makeshift classroom. There's a small 2-car garage that's on that property. We added some heat, air conditioning, so we could at least get some of our folks out of the inclement weather. And it allows us to go ahead and do some things in there. Mid-State Technical College was able to get us some classroom features, and then they gave us a TV for the front, and our IT department was able to bring some of those IT needs down there so that we could have that. So we do have a makeshift. Doesn't necessarily make a classroom, but it is a makeshift classroom at a point. We've got a confined space simulator that allows us to go into confined spaces and dig through those. Really, it's got multiple access points, multiple areas that we can get people in. And then we've got a ventilation prop to teach new firefighters down there, basically on the backside. All of these can be reused. And then, of course, our bathroom facilities. This is kind of what we're up to right now. We'd like to kind of add something for a different feature on that. The current facility problems that we're looking at, right now we don't have we have a lack of master plan to guide future utility placement. So if we were to do any of the stuff and we start to dig into any areas, it's going to be hard for us to figure out where to place some of the utilities that we would need to place down there without having a master plan to kind of guide us in which way that needs to go and what direction we need to be in. We also have lack of utilities, including hydrants. We do have one hydrant that's on the site, but it's at the very front of the property. We'd like to add more hydrants throughout so we can have some more realistic training or pumping operations, if at all possible. A lack of improved roads for large apparatus each year. We end up having some of our roads that actually degrade underneath us. And in those problems, we've actually had some of our engines get stuck and had to pull them out. So that just tells you that the road infrastructure there has got some problems with it. Insufficient lighting and electrical system. Last year, we went through and did upgrade some of our electrical lighting and some of the stuff that needed to go with it. And then the last one is we really don't have any bathrooms other than the current facilities that we're using. With the burn facility, I was kind of talking about this earlier. You saw the panels that were on there. In those panels, what ends up happening is if I replace those panels, I can't get a 5-year certificate with that. What means is somebody comes, they analyze what's behind those panels. So they would have to pull the panels off. They would have to look behind them and they would have to see what that looks like behind. Then they give us a 5-year certificate if there's no degradation to the actual material behind because of the heat. Right now, we can't do that because it is a brick and mortar building and it's an older building. So I can't find any company that will really come in and or do that work. So that's been a big problem for us as far as getting the 5-year certificate. Where that comes in is NFPA 1402, which actually talks about facilities and training center facilities. That one actually calls for the 5-year certificate. It would being a partner with Mid-State Technical College, they can't actually get that 5-year certificate to make sure that they can certify for new firefighters. So kind of an issue that we've been trying to deal with on the last couple of years. It requires a new roof costing about $20,000 for that building. So we did some different prices and that was a couple of years ago as far as the pricing. And we decided maybe this wasn't the best model. Needs burn room renovations. Again, that was the $20,000 we were talking about with the 5-year certificate. So we got about $40,000 right there in just renovation changes to make that building actually work a little bit better. And then the aging infrastructure poses safety risks. As time goes on, a lot of our limiting factors, there's little temperature gauges and things in there. With wiring that runs behind all of that paneling, that all needs to be replaced at this point as well. And that was part of that project for the $20,000. It has limited adaptability for modern training scenarios. Basically what that means is we got a single story in there. So it's a single story training facility. What we really should call for with ISO standards is to actually have a 3-story training facility so that we can go up downstairs. We can do standpipe systems and actually feed water into a standpipe system and then hook into that standpipe on different levels of the building so that we can have realistic training as to what we can do. That also offers that we can go to some of the facilities in the area, but if we have any problems with those pipes or anything that causes a lot of water damage for those facilities, and we don't want to do that, we don't want to cost or incur other costs outside of what we have for our current facility. Some of the aging props, again, I've kind of talked about that with the different problems that we have, but non-compliance with current standards, limited training effectiveness, and also some safety risks that are involved with the piping and also some of the different things with the heat sensors that we have in that building. The RFP process. So we're looking to make sure that we have strategic and sustainable growth. We're looking for a clear roadmap to put together a facility development, also have phased expansion. So we look at phased expansion, we're looking to do different modules that we could do throughout time. And we feel that having a phased expansion would allow us to go ahead and put that piece together so we can do this over time and we can do it in a fiscally responsible manner to get us there. In addition, if we do come across different things that we need to add to this, we can actually add that to it later on. Meaning if we get a different response or if they come up with new equipment, we can also phase that in over time. And again, future training needs. This will meet the NFPA, ISO, and OSHA standards. I kind of talked a little bit at I guess it would have been the Common Council meeting back in November. We talked a little bit about OSHA 1910.156. Right now, everything is stating that that's going to be 2027. I don't know where OSHA is going to stand in 2 years from now, so hard to say what the federal level is going to look like. But it's one of those things that we need to start preparing for, and that's what we're doing in this particular area. It tells us that we need to put together a very comprehensive training plan, and that's something that would help meet this. Also NFPA and ISO. ISO, again, calling for the 3-story structure. The one for NFPA 1402, just the guide to fire service training centers. It helps us to kind of put together what our training centers should look like. I think we got that. Budget and resource allocation, and then support regional collaboration. Some of the core training elements we'd be looking for is the classroom and administrative facilities, the live fire training structure, drill tower and vehicle extrication area, hazmat and training zone, and SCBA confined space system. Some of the future expansion, possibly residential, commercial, and industrial simulation buildings, if at all possible. We'd be looking to do that through grants. Urban search and rescue facilities, which means a rubble pile, being able to actually search through an urban rescue and see what's going to happen. Let's say we had a tornado in our area and a lot of building collapses, that would help us to kind of search for that so we have a good understanding of what to do in those situations. Driver training courses for police training areas, medical and training zones. So it'd be some things we'd be looking at, and then also supporting infrastructure, apparatus bay, equipment storage, and also possibly living quarters if it ever gets to that point. Some of the RFP objectives: develop a phased strategic roadmap for facility construction and expansion. Those would be the areas we'd be really trying to look at. Having that roadmap for the future so that we're not putting in money into areas that we shouldn't be putting money into, and making sure we've got a phased approach to how to get there. Conduct a site analysis, feasibility study, and cost projection just to see what those costs are and what we're looking at for the future. And then incorporate modern technology, sustainability, and also safety enhancements. And then, the big one is meeting regional emergency service needs as well. For some of our surrounding departments, they've also signed on and said we could put together some kind of agreement for them to possibly use it throughout the year for a fee. So that may be something we can definitely look at and explore. If you look onto the side, some of the conceptual fire training master plans, that's what we'd be looking to get for a drawing that kind of gives us a layout of what we're looking at and how we can fit it on that property, if it is a property we want to use. And then the other one, just kind of a conceptual drawing. So when you go for grant type funds, you have to ask, or they're going to ask you for, what is your conceptual plan? You can see my drawing right below it. I don't think they're going to accept that. That's more of a napkin, but it is kind of a conceptual idea. And I think that's something we would need to make sure that we had a better drawing for, so you can see that. Some of the next steps: March 12th, we're looking at RFP dissemination if it is approved here and at the Common Council meeting. We'd also be looking at proposal due by 12 p.m. for April 18, 2025. We'd want those proposals back to us. And then April 21st through the 25th, staff evaluation of the proposal. And then May 5th, 2025, Board of Public Works recommends one proposal to the Common Council. May 11th, Common Council approves consultant selection. And May 14th through the 16th, agreement executed. May 19th, notice to proceed. And then no later than September 1st, we'd want the final comprehensive plan delivered to us to see the deliverables and make sure it's everything we meet or we're asking for. How are we looking to pay for this? Right now, we have a collective agreement or a collaborative agreement with Mid-State Technical College. That means each year they go ahead and they give us $25,000. We put $25,000 towards a proceed. That gives us a total contribution each year for $50,000. In doing that, we put that in a 410 project account that right now has about $72,000 in it, give or take a little. We've been basically holding that money back because we knew we had some infrastructure needs, and we also knew we needed the RFP to kind of move forward. So we've been trying to save a little bit of that. We have expended some of those funds for some of the training props we currently do have. And the approximate average cost of this plan is about $25,000 to $35,000. And we do have the approval from Mid-State Technical College to move forward with the RFP. So that part of the process has already been taken care of. We've also gotten approval from the Police and Fire Commission. I know they don't necessarily build buildings, but we tried to make sure that we keep them in the loop on all of this stuff. And they've also asked that 2 people be a part of this. Some of the design consultants, here's a list of design consultants we'd probably send this information out to. These are people that can literally take care of some of these facility needs for us and can build out the construction plan that what we're asking for. So I think we've got a good group of people that we can actually send it out. Definitely far more than the 3 that we call for in the plan, and I think I would send it out to each one just to make sure we have that information. Some of the training props we could possibly put, I just wanted to give you kind of a conceptual idea of what some of the training props that are across the United States. Obviously, classroom, bathroom, apparatus bay, no different than what we have at the fire department. And then this is kind of a conceptual idea of what they've done for their training facility, kind of a general 5-acre plot, something that could happen for this area. Some of the 3-story training facilities out there, there's a lot of different ones that are on the different parts. This one happens to be using Connex boxes. I think it gives you a good illustration of what we can do with those and the size that they can be. Flashover simulators, a lot of times we're getting firefighters into worse and worse problems. We put them in the best turnout gear, and a lot of times we don't realize that the conditions that are happening over the top of us, this flashover simulator would do a really good job of teaching us what those flashover type situations are going to be, what the heat feels like, what happens with all the air. So it kind of gives you an idea what that is. Ventilation training systems, this one allows us to go ahead and set multiple pitch roofs. So it's another option that might be available for the future. Again, liquid petroleum gas props. We've got some props down there right now that need replacement. This would be something we might possibly be going towards. Car, a lot of times with cars, we got to make sure we're doing the training so that we're coming up at 45-degree angles so we don't get hurt, tires blowing out, things like that. So we got to really watch those things. Even on a dumpster fire, there's certain things that could be in dumpsters. A lot of times we got metal in certain dumpsters. We got to watch for those things. So there's a lot of different things we can do with these applications. Forcible entry, a lot of times we have to do a lot of forcible entry, and with the RTF stuff and also possibly TEMS in the future, we are starting to utilize those. So it allows us to have a pretty good area. There's windows that can be breached. There's all kinds of things that can be done. Again, another possibility, not saying that's where we're going. And then again, another SCBA confined space system allows us to do search and rescue, things like that inside of it. And some of the hazmat training props that are out there. Again, we've got a hazmat team, so a lot of different options available. What are our funding options once we get through the RFP process? A lot of times we can look at some of the Wisconsin innovation grants. Being that this is with a mid-state technical college, a lot of those innovation grants might be very much available to us. Community development block grants, also private and corporate funding, federal and state fire grants, and also public-private partnerships. So we're looking at some different options there. All this RFP, the entire RFP would be put into that. So we would need that to go ahead and ask for those funds to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan ready to go. Again, my humble recommendation for this evening, I respectfully recommend that the city of Marshfield approve the RFP for a comprehensive training center master plan and authorize staff to solicit proposals. I also request that the selection committee has representation of the police and fire commission and common council in addition to city staff. With that being said, just kind of a quick oversight of what our training center is, kind of where we came from, where we're looking to go, and what an RFP looks like. I'd gladly take any questions you may have. And again, my contact information, you can always reach out if you want to go down and take a tour of the facility. I'll be happy to take anybody through the facility at any time. So I'll take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Entertain a motion to approve.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve as recommended.
Have a second? Have a second? Any questions?
Okay, so Chief, thank you very much for the presentation.
You're very welcome.
And we had an exchange via email. I had a couple of questions for you, and I think it's probably important to air those now as well. So you've been around a long time. You knew when it was a wastewater plant, I believe?
I came in right after that.
Okay.
So after it was the wastewater, I was always told it was the wastewater, but the new one was already facilitated by the time I got
Okay, and I think it's safe to say that it was an excellent move to, modify that facility, or that 5 acres into a training facility. It's kind of like the saying, making a silk purse out of a sow's ear.
Yes.
And you've done a lot on the shoestring budget, and prior chiefs have as well. And I haven't had any complaints being the alderman in that district, other than, the weeds around the pond, which isn't your issue, but the street department took care of that.
You bet.
And I'm just wondering, now is a good time for reference. The fairgrounds is also in my district, and I don't know the history of the buildings there, but I got to believe it started with a barn, and now we have quite a large facility, and it works fine. But every once in a while, you get a resident who moves in and doesn't realize what they got into, the fair every year, or the activity there. And I'm just wondering at what point, or how could we take a step back at this point and ask the question, is this the highest, best use for this 5 acre site? Meanwhile, we also hear that we need more property, more land for residential development. I don't know if this would be conducive to that, but would the consultant that we'll be working with, would they think outside the box and be objective with us and say, you know what, you've really done a great thing with this site, but given the fact that you've got residents nearby and the smoke and noise or activity, maybe it's time to look at a different location.
To answer that question, I believe that's going to be part of the RFP process. We're kind of looking for them to come in and analyze the overall site. That's one big piece of this as well, to make sure this site is not only going to meet our needs now, but also far into the future. Yep. And I think if they come back and state that, hey, we don't feel like this site is the best spot for you, we can make that decision at that time, utilizing the committee to make sure that we can put that information together, and then we come back and basically talk here and say, the RFP came back, the consultant is saying that maybe this is the best possibility. The other thing is they would be able to come in and help us present that too. So they can present why it wouldn't be, they can give us the why, and why it would be better to go to a different location if that is the need at that time. So,
and when I look at examples of how this private-public could go, financing, I look at the Amita Center at Mid-State Technical College. I don't know if you're familiar with that building. It's north of Stevens Point.
I think I've seen it a couple of times.
It was farm property owned by Mr. Wayne Bushman, so now it's called the Wayne Bushman Advanced Manufacturing, Engineering, Technology, and Apprenticeship Center. really turned out well. And there was definitely a need. And Mr. Bushman said, yeah, I'll donate the land for it. And a lot of community support came about, and it's a beautiful facility. And I just, when I see, you guys are slaving away, just making the best of what you have to work with from a fund perspective, I just think we should be thinking bigger. And I'm thinking that there's probably someone out there that is, just speculating, probably someone out there that would support a bigger project. And I don't know the answer to this question, but I got to believe that given the activity and the draw that you've created by having this facility, it's much larger than it was when it first kicked off.
Yeah, we've done quite a few things down there and started to add a few features here and there. So we've come a long ways, and
Yeah.
I guess it isn't a short period of time, but yes, over a period of time, we've come a long ways.
Anyway, congratulations to you and the whole crew for maintaining as well as you had, and I look forward to seeing what the study results are.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Anyone else? I can't see Derek.
Yeah, you guys can't see me, but I got my hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Derek.
Thanks,
you.
Mike. I just wanted to ask two quick questions. Number one would be, how does this tie into the CIP that we currently have out there? Because I did see that we do have a line item out there for the training facility that we listed as props and projects that's spread over the next 4 or 5 years. So that was question one. And then question two would just be, what's our backup plan, in order to really process this for me for financing? I know we're looking at grants, but hypothetically, worst case scenario, we get no grants. How do we fund this? What's our plan moving forward?
Okay, I'll tackle the first question you had. The first question was, there is 25,000 that comes out of our budget in the CIP, which is a long-term debt process. That money goes into the 410 project account, and that's money that we utilize for props. That's an agreement with the Mid-State Technical College, and that's a 10-year agreement. So that started back in 2021. It's set to expire 2031. And then again, that's 50,000 per year. I guess if we did the math, what do you got for 200, 400, about $500,000 is what the overall agreement would be for the cost of that training center. So that's the amount of money we would have at the end of that term of that contract. So again, that's the money that gets put in the 410 project account. That's money we're going to use for the RFP. Moving forward, I guess what we're going to look at is multiple different avenues and trying to break this down into a phased approach. So meaning there would be multiple avenues to do it. And what I was thinking is to break it down into smaller areas, because a training facility is about anywhere from 500, that 3-story training tower is about $500 to $1.1 million, depending on the one we go with. Obviously, we're going to look at the most cost efficient method, but that's kind of what those are really ranging out there for. What we were thinking is take one of those projects on and then possibly try to find funding for those properties or that part of the project. And then again, going back to smaller projects built out of that. If it came back to it, I guess the only other option that we'd fall back to is possibly long-term debt. That might be an option that would be out there. I would rather use all the other options ahead of time before we exhaust that. And then we get to that state. But I'm hoping that we can take the 500,000, invest that into an RFP, and then again, invest that into grants or something that's going to give us something back. I hope I'm answering the question, but that's kind of the plan. Again, long-term debt would be the absolute last chance. I mean, that would be the last area that we'd want to go to.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just thought of one other question, listening to Derek's question. How many other facilities are like this in our area, and who owns and maintains them? And I guess where I'm going with that, is this a facility that someone like Mid-State College might say, hey, thanks, we'll take it from here. And we'll, and then we become a user of their facility, whatever arrangement we work out.
I don't think you're going to see that with Mid-State Technical College. And the reason I say that is they're also working with Stevens Point, and they're investing kind of what they're investing into ours. Okay. They're also working with Rome, and then they've got their main training facility down in Wisconsin Rapids. So that's the one they've invested heavily in for their own infrastructure. And again, they're trying to get, and one thing they learned through working with the communities, so they have a group that works with our region. They have a group that works with Stevens Point. I know the mayor's been to a few of those meetings as well. But what they do is they come back and they talk at those meetings, and it really comes back to with our fire training. and the location of our apparatus, it doesn't pay for us to travel long distances with those fire apparatus. It's actually better for us to put together a regional training facility in our area. And really the only ones that are gonna be around our area, you're talking North Central Technical College up by Merrill, and then again, Stevens Point, Rome Fire Department, Wisconsin Rapids is the closest for us. And then we're the other one up on the north end. As far as up to the north of us, we really don't have anything that I'm aware of. They may have something small that it would be at their training, maybe right at their fire station. But for the most part, they wouldn't have anything like this. And I know I've talked to Spencer Fire Department, Stratford Fire Department, and all the surrounding departments for us. And they've all been in agreement that they would be willing to go ahead and work on something with us, give us a letter for those regional grants to try to go down that road.
Good information. I didn't know all of that. I just thought we invented this.
Oh, sorry. No. You know, we've been at this for a while, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into infrastructure for training facilities, and we're finding that there just isn't the area up here. That's why they want to invest the money into this one, but they don't necessarily want to take it over 100%. They basically have said that we'll be
doing a good job. It's definitely a good thing. So
yeah, you bet.
And again, I applaud you for taking a step now and getting a master plan put in place. So
I think it's the right step.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
A motion and a second already.
Oh, then let's vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Item 5, request to approve low bid for lights at Braham Park pickleball courts, presented by Justin Casperson, Parks and Recreation Director.
Good evening. I'm going to try to do this by memory. I forgot to print this off. I printed the other one off, but not this one. So the pickleball project was completed last year. Part of the project had provisions in place like foundations for lights, but the lights weren't included in the project because we didn't have enough money for it to be completed. We got permission to go out to bid, and we got $80,000 from Visit Marshfield to apply towards the project. We got 4 bids, or actually we got 3 bids. So once again, I apologize if I mess this up a little bit because I don't have it in front of me. We got 3 bids, and the low bid was Merkle Company to come in and do the work. There's a difference of about $3,000, and the pickleball group said they would pay the difference of that $3,000 too. So there'd be really no cost to the city itself. So tonight I'm looking for entertainment to approve the low bid from Merkle Company for the light project.
I'll make that
motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second with Derek. Any questions? All right, no questions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Request to approve low bid for Stroman Park renovation project, presented by Justin Casperson, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you again. The Stroman Park is located next to the old City Hall, just kitty corner from this location right now. The idea of the project was to remove overgrown vegetation. There's a pond, call it a water feature, that will be removed. Remove some of the overgrown plants, benches, tables, and put in new material, as well as sidewalks, landscape beds, edging, as well as topsoil and grass seed. The park itself is named after Marvin Stroman, who passed away in 1981 in the line of duty. It was dedicated to the city in 1992 and now called Stroman Park. For the most part, not much has been improved to the park over the last 30 years, so it could use some TLC. The Stroman family, as well as the local firefighters union, approached the department a couple of years ago about making some improvements. The goal was to do it much larger, but obviously grants and donations did not come to fruition, so we only had $35,000 to use. We put it out to bid this February. We received 4 bids back that are noted in your packet. We have a number of alternates there. That was just in case numbers came in much higher than we anticipated. But we did have 1 low bid of Beaver Creek Landscaping at a cost of $11,345 to do all of the work. So our recommendation is to accept the base bid plus the alternates of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3B and do everything at one time for the project.
Entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion and a second. Any question? I have one question. Have you checked this out? I noticed there was an extreme difference in those prices. Have you talked to them? Do they have it all covered so we don't run into it?
Actually, yep, that was I don't want to say a red flag, but yes, I would agree with you. We did call, the owner of Beaver Creek is a former firefighter. His name is in the park. He wanted to do this project pretty bad, as you can see.
Yeah.
He wanted to be involved in it, so he's donating a lot of his labor and donating a lot of materials he already has on site to get this project done. He really wanted to be a part of it, so he was not going to let this opportunity pass him by. So he went above and beyond what he had to do here. As you can see, the other three were much more competitive. He was much lower than everyone else. That's because he's a former firefighter with Marshfield Fire Department.
Fantastic. Thank you to him. All right. Any other
thing.
ones? Go ahead.
Yeah, story time. I remember Chief Cleveland came before the council, and it was a situation where money was being donated, and they put it towards Stroman Park. And I remember asking the question of him at that time: is there ever a point in the development of this park where it becomes too much? In other words, it's nice to have donations, but things can become cluttered, maybe take away from the true meaning of the park. And even though you said it would be nice to have a bigger park, I think just having a park that's well done is probably more important, in my opinion anyway, than a park with, that almost, it seems too busy, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think most of the plant material is now overgrown. It just happens when you have landscaping if you don't cut it back and replace it. So this will be a simpler, more cleaner look. It's going to look nice, especially from Central Avenue with all the people driving by.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Derek.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to, Mike, you kind of hit on my question already, which was just making sure that the numbers were accurate, and definitely want to applaud them for being willing to donate. And, I think that's fantastic, to come in at such a low price. It'll be a great project. I just wanted to make sure, and I think Mike kind of hit it with you talking to them, but like the one thing that caught me off guard with the numbers was that one of the line items was literally $1. And so that's where I was like, okay, maybe the numbers are screwed up because it's not accurate. So it sounds like you guys had the conversation. I'm less worried. I just wanted to kind of double down on Mike's point to just make sure like all of these numbers are accurate, because the one that threw me off was the $1 for alternate 4 for re-level firefighter pavers. So maybe it's just the donated labor, but as long as we're
almost all labor for
there,
that.
I feel comfortable.
Oh, sorry, Derek.
Perfect.
That is all labor for that one. We're not putting in new pavers. We're just taking the existing out, re-leveling them, put them back in. So that's almost all labor cost there.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, recommended items for future agendas. I see none. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.